Hey everyone, I'm Seajay. I'm currently creating my own Fakemon region, the Wentano region, and we have just finished up with the final evolutions for our starter Pokemon, by far and away the most popular of which was Tadaimar, the fire starter. Going forward though, we're going to have two new video formats. The speed drawing videos which I've been producing, but we're going to go in a linear fashion covering the Wentano region, and a new narrative format that covers the story of the Wentano region. Let's get straight into it. In this video, I just want to cover some of the Pokemon that you might encounter on Routes 0 and 1. Just like the previous videos, I want to introduce you to multiple Pokemon at once, and then use later videos to show off their evolutions. Route 0 is actually going to be a cave, which you'll make your way through, and the location of two Pokemon you will be seeing a lot of as they reside in many caves throughout Wentano. The first of these Pokemon is one of our region's main bug Pokemon. One thing I'm trying to keep in mind is not just what Pokemon makes sense in terms of a fictitious region, but also within the structure of a fictitious game. I don't want to create a new Zubat or Geodude, but that being said, I do like the idea of Pokemon specifically designed to live within caves. Being myself though, I wanted to explore an aspect of caves that hasn't been seen yet within Pokemon, being the stalagmites and stalactites that can be found there. These are formed from water dripping from these cave ceilings and produce incredibly beautiful and intricate structures. In terms of this Pokemon specifically, I wanted to start with stalactites. Those are the ones on the ceiling, because while stalactites and stalagmites do form in parallel to each other, one on the top, one on the bottom, they form when water drifts through a cave ceiling leaving a mineral deposit. And since the process starts from above, I wanted to create a Pokemon that would mimic a stalactite and hide itself on the ceiling of caves. Here's the thing though, there aren't that many animals that just want to live in caves. It's not a common thing. There's not a lot of food. It's dark, you have to be specially evolved. It doesn't make sense. Bats sleep there, but they don't eat there. And so there's no real animals that are just cave-specific animals unless they're essentially like these blind worms or centipedes or things of that nature. And I could make another bat, but we have a lot of bat Pokemon, so I didn't want to keep going with that concept. I decided to do a bug for this concept because it breaks the normal bug Pokemon conventions, even though Dwebble is in caves as well in Gen 5, while giving me a Pokemon that can crawl along the ceilings of a cave. So what if I chose a bug that this Pokemon could be based on, like a stag beetle? Because it just sounds so close to stalactite and stalagmite. I believe it creates the most interesting route towards a final evolution too. So it's a little stalactite stag beetle that hides on the ceilings of caves. Should it get frightened, maybe it could drop down off the ceiling as a defense mechanism? Though if it did miss its target, it could impale the earth and get stuck in the ground, who knows? Anyways, meet Stagmite, the ceiling Pokemon. Stagmite are one of the most common Pokemon in the Wentano region, populating many of its cave systems. That being said, their stalactite carapace can make them difficult to spot without help from a trained eye. Residents of the Wentano region know how to find and avoid walking directly beneath a Stagmite, as they can cause serious injuries. Next, let's talk about the other Pokemon that you can find on Route 0, and technically also on Route 1. You see, this Pokemon is nocturnal and spends its sleeping hours during the day inside of caves and then comes out at night. I'm talking about our regional bird, actually. I am a big supporter of every region having some of the same types of Pokemon, hence a regional bug and a regional bird Pokemon being some of the first we're going to cover here. For my regional bird, I wanted to lean into one of my favorite birds, the owl. And I know that we have Hoodoo and Seajay and plenty of cool owl Pokemon, but I just couldn't help myself. One thing that I wish more bird Pokemon did was take the rufflet or volibee route. Many bird Pokemon just start as like a small bird and turn into a big bird. Think about how Fletchling is like a little sparrow and then turns into this big awesome hawk instead of going from like a hatchling into a full-fledged bird. I want this Pokemon to start as a baby bird and grow to be a magnificent owl. That's why this Pokemon is designed to have a fluffy white head, which I think makes it look the most like a hatchling. Additionally, its wings are supposed to resemble a blanket wrapping around the Pokemon, swaddling it. It's like a little baby owl who spends much of its time napping, sleeping, and dreaming. Actually, a lot of dreaming. So much so that the people of Wentano believe that it doesn't just have its own dreams, but that when this Pokemon sleeps, it can view the dreams of those around it. Some even believe that this dream-walking ability allows it to predict the future. Is this true at all? Who knows? But it does appear to have pretty good intuition about the people around it. I'm not sure how obvious that this is or isn't, but this Pokemon is supposed to resemble a baby horned owl. It's funny, even when they're babies, they still have these little feather tufts on their heads, the ones that have earned them the name of a horned owl. Though I do want to be very careful in distinguishing this Pokemon from Noctowl, who uses a large eyebrow ornament to resemble a horned owl, kinda at least. And I know it's not technically the same in terms of physiology, but the silhouette is still enough to communicate the idea. As this Pokemon evolves, I have big plans to make sure that it feels unique and distinguished as an owl Pokemon. For now, meet Fortowl, the Dream Reader Pokemon. Though they are nocturnal by nature, Fortowl spend much of their days and nights sleeping. The waking hours they do have will be spent gathering food, but the rest of their days are spent swaddled in their downy wings. Because of their sleeping habits, many of the residents of the Wentano region believe that when a Fortowl is sleeping, it is viewing the dreams of those nearby. This has even led to beliefs that they can dream and foresee the future. Okay, now we are out of Route 0, a difficult cave that acts as your first test in Wentano. So let's move to your second test, Route 1. Here we're going to encounter 2 more Pokemon, the first of which I'm calling Wentano's Regional Bush. Look, I do not know what to call that token grass-type Pokemon, okay? You've got Oddish, Bounsweet, Flabebe, think of those types of Pokemon. For my Regional Bush, I wanted to use a plant that would thrive in the arid climates found predominantly throughout the Wentano region, a succulent. We do have 2 cactus Pokemon, being Maractus and Cacnea, and we have a tumbleweed Pokemon now too, but we don't have a succulent-specific Pokemon yet, and it felt like the perfect fit. Especially with the succulent's high resistance to heat and sturdy build, it felt fitting to make a defense-focused grass-type Pokemon based off of it. In an effort to reflect that sturdy nature, I decided to create a design where 3 of the succulent's leaves folded down to create legs. With a triangle being the most sturdy polygon, 3 is the perfect number. That being said, I imagine that to move around quickly, this Pokemon could roll those leaves back up tightly against the rest of its body and just roll around. A cute little ball Pokemon should be able to roll, right? I think that this Pokemon would also be incredibly friendly. I imagine it having a bright personality that makes it maybe peppy almost. That's why I opted to include the pink highlights on this Pokemon. It just needed a pop of color to brighten up that dull palette that I was using. It helps give it the energy that I feel this Pokemon might have, even if it lives in the middle of a desert. I'm particularly excited about the evolutions I have planned out. There are a lot of different types of succulents that can inspire this Pokemon as it blossoms into a desert flower, especially when we move towards the center of the Wentano region. I think there's a real opportunity to make a regional bush Pokemon that's both interesting and different from what you might traditionally expect. I also wanted to make sure that this Pokemon actively sought to help other people and Pokemon as part of its personality. I think that the best way to do this would be to incorporate scent elements to this Pokemon's physiology. What if it wandered the deserts and arid regions of Wentano from oasis to oasis? It could emit a sweet odor after drinking to help others find the same watering holes, essentially becoming a guide through the deserts and saving people from thirst. Meet Suscent, the succulent Pokemon. Suscent are known to roll themselves up into tight balls and roll across the arid grasslands and deserts of the Wentano region. Though small, their durable succulent leaves help them to survive for long periods of time without water, as they make long journeys from water source to water source. Suscent are known to emit a sweet aroma just after drinking, which has saved many wandering through the desert from thirst. Okay, we have one more new Pokemon to cover in this video, and that is our second bug Pokemon. I'm a big supporter of the early bug Pokemon that power up quickly and help your team get stronger quicker, even if that strength is not sustained into the late game. Since we're trying our best to emulate a true Pokemon region and experience, I'm giving you 2 Pokemon that can be used to beef up your team early, Stagmite and now this Pokemon. So let's talk about Scorpions. Wouldn't you agree that there aren't enough Scorpion Pokemon? I mean, actually there's like 4 Scorpion Pokemon, which isn't a lot out of 1,000, but there are 2 evolution lines. Either way, I'm going to do something that makes this Pokemon a worthy addition to the Pokemon universe. I plan on going for something completely different in terms of both physiology and evolution to make sure that Gliscor and also Drapion can't be really compared to this Pokemon. So you'll just have to wait and find out what's coming down the pipeline. For this specific Pokemon, I wanted to hone in on something that really wasn't quite yet a Scorpion for this design. Think about baby Scorpions specifically. Right when they hatch, their body hasn't yet hardened into the tough exoskeleton that they need in order for their tail to become a menacing weapon. It's there, but it isn't nearly sharp enough or hard enough to do any damage. That's why this design hopefully looks kind of squishable. I don't think it would be a big tough Scorpion yet. Instead, it's something looking to harden and grow into that shape. You'll also notice no secondary typing is going to be applied to this Pokemon. This is for the same reason. It's still developing and doesn't yet have access to the venom that makes scorpions so deadly. Even if its claws are undersized and meant to not look intimidating, think of this little pug as essentially a blank slate meant to be able to grow into the intimidating arthropod that is a scorpion. For now, though, it's just stuck being a little guy doing its best. In terms of behavior, I considered a lot of ways it could behave. I think the best path is going to be the I've got to act tough and scary since I'm really not kind of mentality. Many scorpions have exhibited very territorial traits in the wild, and so I imagine that this Pokemon would take that to heart, becoming extremely defensive and claiming its own territory. Should anyone get close to it, it will chase after them, trying to appear as intimidating as possible. Meet Snipunt, the snipping Pokemon. Snipunt will often use their small pincers to snip at people and Pokemon who it feels are invading its home turf. These incredibly territorial Pokemon are in fact all bark and very little bite, as they do not carry the dangerous venoms or weapons that their evolutions do. Because of this, you can just ignore this Pokemon should it attempt to scare you off, though this will only infuriate it further. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to show you how each of these are going to evolve into unique and incredible Pokemon who can help you along your journey. After these are complete, we will have 22 Pokemon officially in the Wentano region, 1/7 my original goal, so not too shabby. Until then though, keep in mind that we'll have narrative videos coming up too. Look forward to learning the story of the Wentano region and meeting some of the important characters along the way. I'm excited to see what creations you guys are going to come up with and your theories about how these Pokemon and the story of the Wentano region are going to turn out.